everyone, welcome to Defense IAS Academy. Now our topic is banking. Banking is defined as the business activity of accepting and safeguarding money owned by other individuals and entities and then lending out this money in order to conduct economic activities such as making profit or simply covering operating expenses. In the previous video, I have explained you the two types of institutions under the banking concept. Further, we will study under this concept is nationalization and the development of banking in India. The development of banking industry in India has been intertwined with the story of its nationalizations. Once the Reserve Bank of India, that is RBI, was nationalized in 1949 and a central banking was in place, the government considered the nationalizing of selected private banks in the country. Let us move further. Nationalization of banks in India took place in the following stages. First one, emergence of the SBI. The government of India, with the enactment of the SBI Act 1955, partially nationalized the three imperial banks and named them the State Bank of India. Or we can say imperial banks mainly operating in three past presidencies with their 466 branches. Second one is emergence of nationalized banks. After successful experimentation in the partial nationalizations, the government to go for complete nationalization. With the help of Banking Nationalization Act 1969, the government nationalized a total number of 20 private banks. How 20 private banks got nationalized? Please listen it carefully. 14 banks with deposits were more than rupees 50 crore of nationalized in July 1969. Furthermore, 6 banks out of 20 banks, 6 banks with deposits were more than rupees 200 crore of nationalized in April 1980. Means once first 14 banks were nationalized in July 1969 and the rest 6 banks were nationalized in April 1980. Let us move further. The next stage of nationalization of banks in India is the emergence of the RRBs. RRB stands for Regional Rural Banks. The Regional Rural Banks were first set upon 2nd October 1975. 2nd October is considered as a Gandhi Jayanti. In India, we celebrate 2nd October as Gandhi Jayanti. Only 5 in numbers with the aim to take banking services to the doorsteps of the rural masses, especially in the remote areas with no sense to banking sector. Two duties were fulfilled, and these were to provide credit to the weaker section of the society at concessional rate of interest who previously depended on private money lending. And the second one is to mobilize the rural savings and channelize them for supporting productive activities in the rural areas. Means the rural areas were taken into the consideration while nationalizing the banks. Another main term under the concept of banking is NPA. That means non-performing asset. These are the bad loans of the banks. Criteria to identify such assets have been changing over the time. A loan is considered NPA or non-performing asset if it has been serviced for one term, that is 90 days. This is also known as 90 days overdue norm. Now we can see here NPA has been classified into 3 types. First one is the substandard, second one is the doubtful, and third one is the loss assets. It depends on the timing of payment of the loans. Let us study these three types of NPAs in brief. First one is the substandard. Remaining NPAs for less than or equal to 18 months. Or we can say that in simple words, loan will be considered as substandard up to non-payment of 18 months. Means if it is not paid up to 18 months, then it will be considered as substandard. Second one is doubtful. Remaining NPAs for more than 18 months. Means after 18 months, it would be considered as doubtful NPA. NPA after substandard or after non-payment of 18 months will be considered as doubtful asset. The last one is the loss assets, where the loss has been identified by the banks or internal auditors or the RBI inspection, but the amount has been written off, which means if the payment of loan is not made, then that loan will be considered as loss asset. Another term is which we are going to study under the concept of banking is willful defaulter. As is embedded in the name, a willful defaulter is one who does not repay a loan or liability. But apart from this, there are other things that define a willful defaulter. We will study here. According to the RBI, a willful defaulter is one who is financially capable to repay and yet does not do so, or one who diverts the funds for purposes other than what the fund was availed for, or with whom funds are not available in the form of assets as funds have been siphoned off, or who has sold or disposed the property that was used as a security to obtain the loan. Means if these four are covering the type of defaulter, that will be considered as a willful defaulter. Let us move further towards the another concept of banking, that is capital adequacy ratio, or we can say CAR. Banks are today called the backbone of economies. It is a measure of banks' capital is expressed as a percentage of a bank's risk weighted credit exposure. It can be measured as, or we can say we have a mathematical expression of it, that is CAR is equal to total capitals divided by risk weighted assets. This type of ratio is also known as capital to risk weighted assets ratio. This ratio is used to protect depositors and promote the stability and efficiency of financial systems around the world. Means this ratio is used by the bank while protecting the depositors also and promote the stability and efficiency of financial systems. We have understood the meaning of CAR, means capital adequacy ratio. We have to maintain it. The banking system says that we have to maintain capital adequacy ratio. Why to maintain capital adequacy ratio? We have two reasons behind it. What are the reasons? Bank capital helps to prevent bank failure, which arises in case the bank cannot satisfy its obligation to pay the depositors and other creditors. The low capital bank has a negative net worth after the loss in its business. In other words, it turns into insolvent capital. Therefore, acts as a cushion to lessen the chance of the bank turning insolvent. This is the first reason. And the main second reason is the amount of capital affects returns for the owners, equity holders of the bank. This is why we have to maintain the capital adequacy ratio. These are the main two reasons which we have to keep in mind, and we have to maintain the capital adequacy ratio. This is the little bit concept of banking. If you like this video, please subscribe. Thank you.